Welcome back to the Nutrition Made Simple podcast. At Healthy Steps Nutrition, we believe something as fundamental as nutrition shouldn't be complicated, which is why we focus on a simple, habit-based approach. We know that becoming the healthiest and best version of yourself isn't just about what you eat or going to the gym for a few hours a week. At Healthy Steps Nutrition, we focus on a holistic approach, looking at you as a whole person and helping you create a customized plan, looking at stress management, sleep, support system, exercise, lifestyle, and of course, nutrition. I'm your host, Nicole Aucoin, registered dietitian and founder of Healthy Steps Nutrition, CrossFit HSN, and HSN Mentoring. I'm also the author of The Basics of Nutrition Coaching, CrossFit Preferred Nutrition Course, and the Healthy Kids Cookbook, 100% kid-approved recipes the entire family will love. You can find it on Amazon. In this podcast, we will be teaching you how to take one step at a time to becoming the best and healthiest version of yourself. Well, today's episode is a little bit different. My husband and I are talking all about understanding your numbers, understanding your blood work, what do those numbers mean, and how to improve them. At the very core of Healthy Steps Nutrition, I started this company to help prevent disease, helping people become the best versions of themselves. The problem is today's society and healthcare is more about sick care. We don't get the help we need until it's too late. There's medications prescribed instead of fixing the core fundamental things that are causing us to have issues in the first place, our healthy habits or their lack of. So today's episode, Jason and I discuss the issue with chronic disease, how it's on the rise, numbers that you should be looking at every single year and understanding what they mean. Then we talk about continuous glucose monitoring. When I went to school, this wasn't even something available for people. You used to have to prick your finger and find out your blood sugar. People wouldn't prick their finger enough because they didn't want to do it. It was a pain in the butt. But now there is something called continuous glucose monitoring. When this machine first came out, it was just for diabetics. But the really cool thing is some different companies over the years have started making it available for out-of-pocket purchase for non-diabetics. Once you understand what's going on in your body and you're informed, you can start making better decisions to not only fix issues that are going on, but prevent chronic disease and become the best version of yourself. We are so excited to partner with a company called Signos. They have a platform and they use one of those continuous glucose monitoring machines called the Dexcom G6. The cool thing about this one is that it's Bluetooth. You don't have to scan your phone. All those numbers automatically go to your phone. It even gives you reminders. Hey, go for a walk. Your blood sugar is getting a little elevated. It's not something that you constantly have to do forever, but I do recommend that every single person do it for at least a month to see what's going on the inside of your body. The reason why we partnered with Signos is that they have built, I'm so excited about this, they have built a professional platform. What does that mean? Well, every single one of our clients that signs up with Signos, we can see the blood work. We can see what's going on in real time, which means I can give our clients feedback. Our dietitians, our licensed professionals can give our clients feedback so they can start making changes and start feeling better, stop having those crashes in the afternoon, sleep better, feel better. Also, just making sure that they are the healthiest versions of themselves. Jason and I go into details about this program, but we are super excited to launch it. I have one more awesome thing to announce before we get to this episode. On April 9th, 2022, I'm going to be hosting a free webinar on understanding your blood work and also how to prevent chronic disease using consistency with healthy habit formation. So you can click the link in the show notes to register for this free webinar, either attend live, it's going to be at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday, April 9th, or you can even register to catch the recording. We will be doing this live, and if you are listening to this podcast after April 9th, that's okay. Click the link and you will be able to get instant access to this recording. This is the first step that we are taking to actively give people medical feedback related to what they are eating so that they can, again, get their numbers under control and prevent chronic disease. All right, let's get to this episode. There's so much information talked about. So if you're like, hey, Nicole, I want to learn a little bit more about this. I want to see some charts related to these numbers to be able to reference where I'm at when I get my blood work. Click the link in the show notes and you're going to be able to access all of that information. Enjoy this episode, and I hope to see you on Saturday, April 9th for our live webinar.
Welcome back to the Nutrition Made Simple podcast. I'm your host for the first time ever, Jason Aucoin, and I have the hostess with the mostest, and I'm going to be asking her some questions today, Nicole Aucoin. Thanks for coming on your show today.
Oh, goodness. Here we go.
Well, so what we're going to talk about today, Nicole, is blood work and continuous blood glucose monitoring and why it's important. And even if you're not a diabetic, why you should want to know about this. So why don't we get right into it and let's talk about it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. This concept, I was introduced to non-diabetics wearing continuous glucose monitoring from some people at CrossFit Health actually a few years ago. And I remember eating dinner with a friend of mine, Dr. Danny, who's the Steady MD medical director, and he had a continuous glucose monitor on his arm. And I was like, why in the world would someone have a needle in their arm? Like, why would you do that? And essentially he was doing a self-experiment to see how his body was tolerating different foods, because the truth is we never know. And most people find out that they're intolerant or having some problems regulating blood sugar at the point that it's too late and they're pre-diabetic or diabetic and now have to take medications.
Yeah. And my dad's diabetic, and you and I know diabetics, right? It seems to be more and more common. I mean, you probably have a statistic of that's something ridiculous or crazy. So I always thought when I saw someone with one of those things in their arm, oh, they're a diabetic, and that monitors their blood glucose levels. I never thought in a million years that we should try it, and we did. And wow, what a game changer.
It's interesting. There's so many people that are struggling with overweight, obesity. I mean, the numbers are on the rise. They're constantly rising. Over 75% of Americans are either overweight or obese. About 50% of Americans are pre-diabetic or diabetic. I mean, that number is growing astronomically every year, and it comes down to overconsumption of processed carbohydrates and sugar. And if you don't think this is a big deal, when we look at the leading causes of death, 9 out of 10 of those are related to blood sugar, either lack of control of blood sugar or complications from elevated blood sugar. For instance, type 2 diabetes, cancer, Alzheimer's, heart disease, stroke, even respiratory infections, COVID-19. I mean, there's so many things that having a regulated blood sugar will help improve your quality of life, longevity of life, and prevent chronic disease, which is the ultimate goal of healthy steps nutrition. To begin with, I think it's interesting because you go to the doctor, right? You might get blood work done once a year, maybe, and you either get a check mark or you get an X. You don't really know what your numbers are, and you definitely don't know what they mean. And for the most part, you don't even know how to improve them.
Yeah, it's a little scary, right? And this isn't just like, I hate to refer to, like, are there skinny diabetics?
Yeah, I mean,
right. So like this has nothing to do with saying, hey, we're fat shaming, or hey, look at how that person's big and they have diabetes. That's not what this is about right now. This is about your insides, right? And we're going to get into that a little bit longer and shortly. I'll give one example of that real quick, and not to get off track, but I spent 17 years at the fire department, and I struggled with my sleeping, right? Because I was constantly on that, the bells would go off, the alarm would go off. Some nights we'd sleep an hour, right? And so for the last 17 years, I just got used to not sleeping well at night. And now I've been out of the department for 2 years now, and my sleeping has definitely increased and gotten much better. But the nights that I don't sleep well, I just kind of always chalked it up to, I must have a lot on my mind. We're getting ready to leave for a trip or something like that, right? And I would venture to say you did the same thing.
For sure.
And once we did that glucose monitoring system, and we started realizing, when we ate some sweets or when we ate certain foods later in the day or the evening, were my worst night's sleep. And so it's kind of like we go back and we start looking at those numbers, and I'm sure you're going to dive into that a little bit more, but this has nothing to do with, necessarily, yes, are people overweight? Yes. Are they diabetic? Yes. But this is something we all need to pay attention to.
I mean, the truth is, like, most people don't know how their body is designed to feel. We chalk it up to, this is just the way my body is. When in reality, if we started understanding what's going on in our body, how our body responds to different foods, we can feel so, so much better. High level overview, and we'll put some charts in the show notes because I know us rambling about these numbers, people are not going to be able to jot them down. And I think it's important to be able to understand, especially if you have blood work from past years or the past few months, you can go back and look and see where you are, because most doctors don't spend enough time interpreting this information. A1C, that's your 3-month average of your blood sugar. This is historically what rates people, either controlled diabetics or uncontrolled diabetics. And the problem is when you have uncontrolled diabetes for extended periods of time, you start having complications. It's only a matter of time. So A1C levels, we want them to be under 5.7. It correlates with your blood sugar, how high or low your blood sugar is throughout the day over the course of 3 months. So that's one blood level that we always look at. Triglycerides are another level that we look at that are directly related to processed carbohydrate consumption. A lot of our excess carbohydrates are stored in the liver. We work with a pediatric gastroenterologist. This isn't just for adults, right? Like, we work with Dr. Hernandez. He refers a lot of patients to us who have fatty livers and they're kids. They're 10 years old, 11 years old. And why are they having that? Well, their parents are feeding them sugary juices and processed stuff for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They become addicted to it. They eat more and more, and it puts a lot of strain on their body. So triglycerides are something that you look at. Also, blood sugar, fasting blood sugar, how high your blood sugar goes up, how long it stays up, and how quickly it goes down. When you think about, eating lunch, let's say you have a sub for lunch and some fries or chips, and maybe you have a soda with it. Your blood sugar is going to spike up drastically. Then your body's going to secrete something called insulin, your pancreas, and it's going to drop your blood sugar really quick. That drop causes you to have those highs and lows with energy. So all of this stuff is correlated together. When you eat processed carbohydrates or even sugar at night, your fasting blood sugar is elevated the next morning. Your body's working on overdrive to break that sugar down, and we don't want to do that.
Yeah. So I have kind of an example, and just play with me here for a minute. When you go to the gym and you work out, your heart rate's going up, right? You're moving, you're sweating, and when you come home and you eat, and your internal organs, they're kind of sweating and working. Right? Is that an analogy? Like when you're eating something, your pancreas, your liver, everything on the inside has a function, right? So when we go to bed at night, we're resting, right? So is that the time when our organs are trying to rest, an inflammatory response? Like, isn't that supposed to be chilling out now? We're not trying to put more pressure on our pancreas and more pressure by eating carbs and eating sugary things late at night, because when we go lay down, now our insides are still working all night long. Would that be a fair analogy, or am I a little off cue here?
I mean, I think you're onto something for sure. It definitely is causing our body to work harder than it needs to. There's other processes that have to happen at night that we are required to do. So most people, I don't think, understand like what actually happens when we eat something. So I want to like high level overview, like let's pretend we're eating something, right? Okay. So we eat some food. Our body secretes enzymes to break that food down. So it starts in our mouth and then it goes down to our stomach, goes in, and the food that we eat, the carbohydrates that we eat, breaks down into glucose molecules. That glucose goes into our bloodstream. That's when our pancreas is notified, like, hey, our blood sugar is elevated. Our pancreas secretes insulin. Insulin is like a key that unlocks cells and allows them to be used, allows the glucose to be used. Are you following me?
I'm right with you, girl.
Okay. So the insulin is really important because if we don't have insulin, if our body's not making enough insulin, our blood sugar stays elevated, and that causes a lot of complications later. So insulin's like a key. It unlocks our cells so that glucose can come in, and glucose is our body's main source of fuel. So we need the glucose to be entering into our cells. But sometimes we eat too much carbohydrates that our body's not using it. So then it ends up getting stored in our fat cells also in our liver. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, why those kids are coming to us because their livers are struggling is because their body is working on overdrive to store all of the sugar that they're eating. So basically, we eat something, our blood sugar goes up, our pancreas secretes insulin, our blood sugar goes down. The opposite situation happens when our blood sugar goes low. Our pancreas secretes another hormone that causes our body to release that stored glucose from our liver and then increases our blood sugar. So it's a natural ebb and flow as our blood sugar goes up and down throughout the day, throughout the weeks. The problem is sometimes our body does not either make insulin or make enough insulin, or we've worked our body, think of like a car and not putting good gas in it. And we're constantly putting like the lowest gas in our car. At some point, something's going to break. Or maybe we don't change the oil, take care of our body. So what we want to do is make sure that we're taking care of our body so our pancreas isn't having to going on overdrive. So that's always an interesting question, type 1 diabetes versus type 2 diabetes. Nicole, what does that mean? Like relate this back. Well, type 1 diabetes, most of the time kids are the ones that are diagnosed with this. Their pancreas does not work at all. So we're not secreting any insulin. So that's when people have to take insulin shots, have an insulin pump. That's where continuous glucose monitoring really came into being, is because it constantly monitored blood sugar so that if our blood sugar went too high or too low, a notification would go to our phone and tell us like, hey, we need to either eat something that has sugar because our blood sugar is too low, or take insulin so that our blood sugar gets back to a normal level.
And this is type 1's usually not reversible, right? Like for the most part, you're not going to go out, exercise or out eat a type 1 diabetes, correct?
Yeah, correct. So, you can lower the amount of insulin you have to give yourself by lowering the amount of carbohydrates that you give yourself or like that you're eating, but you're going to have to take shots essentially.
Okay.
Type 2 diabetes is going back to our overusing our car analogy where something's going to break down. Our body is not able to keep up. Think of like running on a treadmill even. We're running so fast at some point, like we're not going to be able to keep up, right? So our pancreas can't keep up with the amount of sugar, carbohydrates that we are eating. And now our blood sugar is constantly elevated. There's our pre-diabetics and our diabetics.
I'm picking up what you're putting down, babe.
So you have a couple different options here. The first option a lot of times is oral medication called metformin. The problem is that we're not changing behavior there, right? Like if they're just taking a medication and covering up symptoms, like it's going to eventually get worse. And then we're going to have to be on insulin. And then we're going to have all these complications. And we know quite a few people that have complications like numbing in your feet and your hands and all of these things. The amazing thing about all of this and why I'm spending time on it and why we're going to have an awesome announcement at the end of this podcast is because a lot of this up to this point is preventable and reversible, right? So
Say that louder. One more time for the people in the back.
So a lot of this stuff is preventable and reversible, not type 1 diabetes, but controlling your blood sugar. If you have elevated blood sugar due to lifestyle factors, you can reverse all of this stuff before you start having permanent complications, which is super, super exciting. And it really comes down to, people overconsumption of processed carbohydrates and sugar.
So Americans that are 2 years and older and their intake of added sugars is less than 10% of their total daily calories. So tell me a little bit more about like a 2,000 calorie diet. What should that look like? How many of the calories from sugars and then teaspoons and like what's a can of soda have in it? Like, let's talk some numbers here. Cause I think that our listeners, like when you kind of put a measuring spoon out and then you show them how much sugar intake they're doing, what is the average adult or a child supposed to have in a day?
It's super interesting, right? So the American Heart Association says no more than 6 teaspoons for women, 9 teaspoons for men. If we look at based on a 2,000 calorie diet, no more than 10%, that's 200 calories, about 12 teaspoons. So we're between 6 and 12 teaspoons. That's 1 can of soda.
So let me get this straight. 1 can of soda is the intake of sugar for the whole day.
Of added sugar, yes. So we have which added sugar is in everything. And most people don't even realize how much sugar they're consuming. I mean, you measure out your coffee creamer now.
I do every morning.
And it's because you like the coffee creamer that has
a lot of sugar in it.
A lot of sugar in it. So you measure out 1 tablespoon and you enjoy your sweet coffee every single morning, and then we move on and you get some exercise in. So I think it's super important for people to understand, like, where are you getting the sugar that you want? You know, it's so frustrating to me to see all of these companies spending so much money advertising whole grains, great source of protein, great source of vitamin C, but then you turn it over and it's, 12 grams of added sugar in 1 serving, and your kid is likely going to have 2 or 3 servings, and they're eating more sugar than they need for the whole day in just their breakfast option. So, continuous glucose monitoring really empowers people to understand what's going on the inside of their body at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think I'll just from my own self speaking, I was not aware of how my body was supposed to feel prior to doing that. And then what was great about it was every time we ate something, that feeling that I had within hours after, sometimes within minutes to hours, I was like, I looked at my sugar and then I could correlate it to how I felt and go, it's like a light bulb went off. Whereas previously, because we don't know, we're eating the foods that are advertised as good for you. And so I always went back to, it's not your fault. You're doing what the marketing agencies and all these companies want you to do. You're buying their products because it says real fruit, whole grains, American Heart Association, all these things. And it's like the opposite, right?
It was so interesting and frustrating to me when I would go to like even dietitian conferences, and we would, go in and learn about all these things that half of the funding came from sugar companies, essentially. So of course it's the conclusion is going to be, in moderation, it's fine. But the truth is studies show that sugar is more addicting than many drugs. So yes, have a treat and then move on. I'm not saying never have anything, but I think it's really important to understand the long-term impact for you, your health, and also your kids if you're a parent. So, you mentioned this. We did the continuous glucose monitoring experiment. We did it for ourselves, really just to kind of understand. I wanted to test a lot of different things. There are some foods that people always ask me about that I wanted to see, like what's going on in the inside of my body after I eat that specific food. And we'll talk about those in a minute. But, we didn't push it a lot because the problem is I'm pretty educated with nutrition, right? So I could understand when I ate something, why my blood sugar was going up. But if you weren't working really closely with someone who could interpret that data for you, it would be a frustrating experience.
100%. Even to this day, when I get a little tired in the afternoon, your first response is, what'd you have for lunch today? What'd you have today? What'd you eat? Because you're already dissecting that situation and saying, well, this is why you feel this way. Whereas me, I'm a normal average, I didn't get a degree in nutrition. That's not something I think about.
And, I think when we can help people understand and have a deeper understanding of what's going on inside of your body, have the real-time feedback, and then give you real-time feedback, you're going to be able to see results so much faster. So that's a preview of something that we'll talk about in a few minutes. Let's just talk about the biggest takeaways from that experiment. You mentioned one that I'll let you talk about a little bit more, but one of the core values that we talk about at Healthy Steps Nutrition is having a balance of whole foods, having protein, carbs, and fat together. One of the easiest things we talk about is the plate method. Half of your plate vegetables, quarter protein, quarter starch. One of the things we talk about is having our clients eat veggies first. And when we did that, when we followed the plate method, when we had a balance of protein, carbs, and fats, our blood sugar didn't go up as high, didn't stay up as long, and didn't have that drastic downward, which causes a lot of inflammatory response. So that was really awesome. Even things like we went to pizza one night with your family, and you and I both had a large salad first. We had like 1 or 2 small slices of pizza, and it didn't have that huge spike.
No, not at all. We eat pizza. We go to we're a normal family. I think people sometimes think, oh, well, how's it like living with an RD? I'm like, we go to a pizza place every once in a while after church sometimes, or we'll do things with other families. The difference is we're aware of what we're eating. I'm still going to have pizza, but I'm going to fill my plate with salad first, some meatballs second, and then I might have a slice of pizza after. Whereas if I went in for the pizza first, it wouldn't be good. It'd be bad, right? So, I mean, doing that and then eating carbs at night. I've got a sweet tooth and everybody knows it. So every once in a while, I like to have like a cookie or two before bed. I'm maybe exaggerating. Maybe it's a little more than that. I'm underplaying it. But once I realized that my night's sleep was so bad, and then we could go back and look throughout the night and look at my numbers. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this isn't me going, I have a lot on my mind. What's on my mind at night? Nothing. I'm like, it's the sugar, and it just freaked my body out. And I'd wake up the next morning and I'm like, it's just not worth it anymore. So, I mean, we can be honest here. How often do you see me eating cookies at night? And when was the last time you've seen it?
I think the blood sugar monitoring experiment for you was the last time that you ate cookies at night.
It rattled me. I love my sleep way more than I love my cookies.
I love it. The other thing that was super interesting, and it actually spiked up my blood sugar more than the food that we ate, was exercise. And when I talked before about the pathway of your blood sugar going up when you eat foods and your liver secreting pancreas, or your pancreas secreting insulin and to bring down your blood sugar, and the opposite thing happening with your blood sugar secreting glucagon to convert molecules into glucose, that's what happens when we're exercising. So our body is like, hey, you're burning a lot of sugar. Let's convert some of the stored sugar that's in our liver and in our muscles to move into our bloodstream so that we can use it up.
Makes sense. Which
is super, super interesting. But the cool thing that happens is your body is able to regulate food, and your blood sugar is more controlled with the food you eat after you exercise. So if we eat, and it goes both ways. So one of the things with the new system, the Dexcom G6 that we're using, is my blood sugar will go up after I eat, and then I get a notification on my phone that says, hey, go for a walk.
How awesome is that?
It tells you, and what happens, even going for a simple walk will help stabilize and lower your blood sugar. The cool thing is, I don't know if you know this, but your fire department, Fred, actually started incorporating walks after the food that they eat at the fire department at Pompano Beach. And it's helping them regulate their blood sugar better.
That's awesome.
So awesome. So those were like our three biggest takeaways. But one of the biggest shockers that I had with this, and is a common question I get asked all the time, is acai bowls. And we actually brought this up at church one day when I was speaking. You're like, Nicole, you need to clarify. It's not the regular acai. It's like the Americanized version of acai that has honey and all these fruits and everything else in it. Acai is technically a fruit, but when you buy an acai bowl at a store, they load it with added sugar, and it causes your blood sugar to go up, stay up longer. And one of the systems that we used actually rated the food, and it was rated a 1 out of 1 to 10.
Wow. That reminds me of that smoothie, the green smoothie that I thought was good for me while I was studying for my captain's test. And remember, I was drinking those the green machine. I mean, it's got green stuff, and it's good for you. It's their healthy version. 70 grams of sugar.
More than you need in a day, just from one thing. The other thing that was super interesting is we stopped by Chick-fil-A just to see.
Where are my Christian people at?
And our blood sugar, both of us, it was skyrocketed.
No sauce. I know what you're saying. You're saying, oh, well, those sauces have sugar. You're right, they do. We went bare, naked, no sauce, and just ate the chicken tenders. And within an hour, our Nicole's sugar was through the roof. What did it go up to, like 200?
It was bad.
It was bad, right? And then we started going, we were looking up the ingredients, and like somebody said that the knockoff version of that has powdered sugar in it. I'm like, no wonder it's so damn good and addicting, right?
Yeah, goodness. So we talked a lot today about, blood sugar control. And I think people understand, like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. I understand. And the truth is I hate needles, and you can't even feel it.
Nope.
You cannot feel it. It stays in. So it's not a needle that actually stays in your arm.
It's like a plastic catheter. So like when you go to the hospital, we've all had, not everybody's had an IV, but it's a little piece of plastic that stays in there. You don't feel it. There's a big Band-Aid that goes over it, and then it syncs up with your phone, right?
So the cool thing with the Dexcom G6 is that it automatically syncs. And normally with insurance companies, it will cover, many of your insurance companies will cover continuous glucose monitoring. But this company that we partnered with, Signos, the reason why I partnered with them is they have a professional dashboard. And what that allows is for one of our clients to sign up for a higher tier nutrition coaching package that includes this. And we can see everything that's going on. Of course, there has to be consent, but we as licensed dietitians can see what's going on so that we can give recommendations and help people be able to take control of their health. Because at the end of the day, that's our mission.
Wait a minute. So you mean to tell me if I sign up for this, I get the glucose monitoring at 2 a.m, you're able to look and see and look back on your end what my sugar was?
I can see at any moment because it automatically syncs. So we actually started yesterday. You hooked up one of our clients with the continuous glucose monitor. You poked them. I'll do it for our clients in the future, but you did the first one. And I could see every single thing that he ate today. And I could see how his blood sugar was going up and down and how his body was reacting to food. And the cool thing is now we can customize plans based on what his body is tolerating and what it's not. So number one, he's able to start improving some blood work. Number two, he's going to be able to see results faster. And number three, he's going to be able to prevent chronic disease, which is the ultimate goal at the end of the day.
This is so cool. So how do we get started with this? Tell us a little bit more.
So it is going to be a little bit slower onboarding process, right? Because there's a lot of manual touch points with a dietitian with this process. So we have launched an application for people to submit their information, and then we're slowly going to let people in one at a time because we want to make sure that everyone has such an amazing experience and we can give that real-time feedback. So there'll be weekly calls with dietitian to go through your results and help you. The first month is going to be the continuous glucose monitoring, and then we're going to have months 2 and 3 to help continue and nail down habits and really create a solid foundation. And you'll have the opportunity to continue with ongoing coaching after that. But it's going to be a 12-week, 3-month program.
Awesome. All right. Well, hey, Nicole, thanks for being on your show today and letting me play along with you for a little bit. I always get a kick out of the blood glucose because I think, my biggest thing is people just don't know. And now we have the tools to provide it for them.
I hope you enjoyed that episode with Jason and I, and you understand a little bit more about what those numbers mean when you get your blood work done and how to improve them. If you are looking for more individualized support, I highly recommend that you click the link in the show notes and apply to be a part of this higher tier continuous glucose monitoring paired with Healthy Steps Nutrition expert coaching with our dietitians. We are so excited to launch this new program. At the end of the day, our goal is to help people become the best and healthiest versions of themselves. But it's tough to be able to do that if you don't know exactly what's going on the inside of your body. Every person reacts differently to the foods that they eat. Some people are a little bit more sensitive to carbohydrates. Some people are a little bit more sensitive to other types of foods. But if you don't know, you can't make informed decisions. I think one of the things I struggled with the most when I worked as a clinical dietitian at a hospital is the fact that we were so reactive with diabetes care. People's blood sugar would go up. We would give them more insulin. We were constantly letting them have an abundant amount of carbohydrates that would cause their blood sugar to go up. It would cause them to have more insulin. Those medications would cause more side effects. The problem was there was this vicious cycle of people coming in the hospital, getting better, getting their blood sugar under control, but we never really spent the time to teach them what they needed to know, and they most importantly didn't have the accountability and support that people need. And it can be super frustrating if you're not seeing results, but part of the problem is you don't have the feedback that you need. You don't have the accountability and support that you need. It's not your fault. There's so much mixed information out there. So instead of this broken system at the hospital, now we are so excited to empower people with the education and the information they need to make the best and most importantly, healthiest decisions for themselves to become the best versions of themselves. So excited about this new program, and make sure that you click the link in the show notes to register for that live webinar that we're hosting on April 9th. If you're listening to this podcast after April 9th, no big deal. You can click the link in the show notes and get instant access to that webinar. Also, if you're looking for more information about how to get into our continuous glucose monitoring paired with nutrition coaching program, then click the link in the show notes and you can apply for that too. All right, we'll see you back here next week.